Um, I would really like to present tonight on what is self-compassion, what is not, to explore the link between self-compassion and well-being. There's a lot of science behind it, a lot of research being done. And also the chance to present a little bit more about the 8-week program that will be happening end of July here. But also there are many programs delivered online. I would encourage, we are potentially going to deliver an online program as well. So I'm here also to answer any questions and also to bring the practice forward as well. So we will be doing a few additional practices. Soothing touch and self-compassion break are always good points to start with self-compassion. We'll be talking a little bit more about that. So what is self-compassion really? It's coming as a from the research from Christine Neff, who worked in a field of researching just self-compassion, and Chris Germer, who is using mindfulness and compassion in his work. He's a psychotherapist, and he uses his work mindfulness and compassion, and they got together on some conference, and this is where all of this, they put both of their practices together, and the program Mindful Self-Compassion is their brainchild, really. Within the practice, we are looking into how to transform the thoughts, the self-judgment, into self-kindness. And the whole concept of treating ourselves with kindness, it comes in many different forms. It comes in the way how we talk to ourselves, what kind of behaviors we engage with, and how do we bring this act of self-care for us. So on Wednesdays we are actually bringing these sessions. Every Wednesday Joanna is talking about and bringing the practice of self-care to you. It has elements of self-compassion. So one of the parts in the practice that we are really exploring is how to recognize our thoughts and how we respond to self-judgment. Our body can stiffen up, our emotions can arise, and from that perspective, the practice of mindfulness is really important to help us to notice those moments when we actually go into a strong emotion based on self-judgment, right? So the practice of mindfulness also helps us to step out of over-identification. Over-identification means that we become the emotion. We become overwhelmed by it. I just had a client today saying that he got surprised by suddenly catching himself being in the space of such a strong anger that he was screaming at someone's face, and that startled him. So that would be over-identification. We become the anger, we become the anxiety. So mindfulness actually is really important, that we can have that moment of observing. However, in that observing of the state as it's coming in, and as we are going into awareness, the first step, this warmth that can help us, instead of judging ourselves and criticizing ourselves, that we bring this voice of common humanity. So common humanity would basically go something like this. It's not this experience of these emotions that I'm experiencing are actually really common. Many people would experience emotions like this if they were in this situation. Often we can go into the space of shame or embarrassment and feeling like, oh, I'm so stupid, only me, only because I'm incapable I would respond to a situation. But when we bring this means that we isolate ourselves and feel alone, right? So this aspect of common humanity is really, really important part of the practice. In a moment, we will actually have a meditation and go and learn how it really all three steps work within the meditation. And then there are other two elements of the practice, which is we have both yin and yang practice. So with the yin practice, we learn how to be with difficult emotions, how to hold them gently, how to hold them with kindness, how to bring comfort to ourselves, how to validate that the presence of difficult emotion is there and that is just human. And then the yang aspect is to basically bring the sense of action that we are providing, that we are acting for ourselves or for the world. Christine Neff published a book called Fears, with exploring the topic of fierce self-compassion. So this would be kind of like unconditional, really like mama bear acting to defend her cub. That would be ultimate expression of yang aspect of self-compassion. Sometimes we go into the experience. In a moment I will be looking into the aspects of what are the misgivings of self-compassion, just to kind of like clear that out of the way as well. Are there any questions based on what I just shared? If there are no questions, then I can it's a little bit more difficult for me to see the messages right now because I'm sharing the screen. But if at any point anybody would like to ask a question, please raise your hand or give me a sound. All right. So often we might be thinking, I know that I personally thought like it's when we have this element of self, putting ourselves first, it can give a sense of selfishness and so on. So it's just if you can take a bit of time, if you have a pen and paper, and maybe you can just write for yourself right now, what is standing in the way between you and self-compassion? What is stopping you from giving self-compassion to yourself? You might even bring into your mind a situation that you specifically maybe criticize yourself for some behavior, some habit, or perhaps just for something that you have said to someone. So what would stand in the way between you and the practice of self-compassion, do you think? Would anybody like to share? I would really like to hear if anybody would like to share. Maybe that is a better way of putting it.
Hi, Dana. I can
Yes.
try first. Okay.
Yes. Go
Well,
ahead,
first
please.
time when I met self-compassion, I think I'm not deserving. So I have no time, I have no resource to think about compassion or self-compassion. I need to be try hard, working hard, or play hard, and only weak people need to be compassion. So it is very difficult for me to. I understand what is compassion or self-compassion, but it is very difficult for me from the bottom of my heart to accept compassion, especially self-compassion. Until maybe one day I have some very difficult situation, and I know I cannot solve all the problems. I still need to suffer with it.
Yeah.
At that time, I understand I cannot change the world, and even I cannot change myself totally. So what I can do is just accept myself totally. All the bad habits, shortcomings, all the things maybe I hurt other people. At that moment, I realized that is compassion. And if I need to show compassion, firstly, I need to understand how to give myself compassion. Yeah, it's not easy. It took me almost 3 or 4 months to accept the concept of self-compassion, not understand, just accept it.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's my difficult journey.
Thank you so much for sharing and for bringing the word difficult. Yeah, it's hard. It really is hard.
Yeah.
I completely relate to that experience. I know when somebody brought that up for me in a session, and just saying how I could be more compassionate to myself, I was so surprised. It was such a shock for me that that concept even existed. So, Queenie, I see that you unmuted yourself. Would you like to share or not? Or maybe that was, oh no, sorry. I thought that you did, but actually, no, that was, um, oh, Ella. Okay, go ahead, Ella. Wonderful.
I hope it's okay to share without the camera.
Yes, yes, please. No worries. Yeah.
I think for me, one thing I've always struggled with is with self-compassion and being compassionate for others and showing compassion for others. And if I am in a situation where sometimes I feel like maybe there's a choice and to choose others seems like the right decision. And is it possible to kind of coexist where I'm having self-compassion, but also having compassion for the other person in situations where maybe it's a little bit more challenging? And it takes a lot of kind of effort to be compassionate for the other person. And so not be able to kind of turn that around and say, okay, well, kind of coexist with some compassion.
So there's this idea that perhaps it's either or. If you're compassionate for yourself, that maybe it's a bit confusing. What does that mean for others? Yeah.
Yeah, kind of in a sense of, is there a point where being compassionate for myself changes how I might be towards others?
Right, I hear. So something about does being self-compassionate mean being selfish, right? or is just the curiosity how it will change being with others, right? Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, wonderful. Thank you. Thank you for sharing. And Dawn?
I was just reflecting on what misconception and doubt I have. I just feel like I have self pity. I I I I see and I hear myself being very compassionate with all of my friends and people who share with me, and people that I lead in my group, my mindfulness group. But when it comes to myself, I feel like I am just full of self-pity. And it's been really difficult for me to distinguish, is this self-pity or am I compassionate with myself? So yeah, that's where I am.
Thank you. Thank you for bringing this up as well. Such an important part of understanding what is the difference between sympathy, empathy, compassion, and there are nuances, and you know, like how do we distinguish when is the self-pity and when am I actually holding myself with kindness? And it is a part, it's basically this whole journey of exploration of self-compassion is really a discovery into looking into our own being and finding out what really matters to me, what kind of values, how do I hold anger, who is criticizing whom when I'm talking to myself. All of that makes it such a unique experience of every practitioner. So there are no recipes really, only an invitation for us to explore. And all of these questions that you brought up and reflections are really important so that we can have the experience of all different nuances that can this practice can bring. So I'm not sure, Ella, if you still have your hand raised and you still want to say something, or if this is from the previous. All right, okay, thank you. So just to share a little bit about the research, what is showing, because I think for our logical mind is important to hear these words as well, so it can just give us space to explore a little bit deeper. So self-pity, Dawn, as you mentioned, it's such a big part of misconception of self-compassion. So through these parts of the practice, though, the research is saying that we develop the aspect that is through the common humanity, is just constantly reminding us that we are not alone. So the practice is designed in a way that through that experience we actually feel less self-pity, because we have the sense of togetherness. Actually, self-pity would bring this sense of isolation, right? Feeling sorry for ourselves, as opposing to admiring some other people who are doing it wonderfully, right, all the time, as we think, right? And also the research is showing that we are less likely to ruminate in general. We would not be even bothered with topics like this. There is some sense of replenishment in our brain that actually enables us to do that naturally. So sometimes self-compassion is seen as weakness, right? So if I am self-compassionate, then I'm weak, I can't be strong, I'm not reliable, I can't rely on myself, or look at me, I'm again saying that you know, I'm suffering, and so on. However, the findings are, the research is showing that there is more caring and supporting presence that comes as a result of the practice, and people feel less separate again, and through that there is sense of strength. Actually, it comes completely opposite, that we are actually feeling stronger as a result of that. And then sometimes people would think that maybe it's self-indulgent. I'm too much focusing on myself. I'm not thinking about others. Or can I think of others if I'm practicing self-compassion, right? So it's actually, again, research is showing that there's this upscale of the results of how health, there's much more focus on health, people become more healthy, it's not related to short-term pleasure, because sometimes this self-indulgent experience can mean that I'm putting too much focus only on myself. But actually, you know, like, it's really our brain is naturally transforming and actually taking us into healthy behaviors. I was a long time smoker personally, so I like to test these things. You know, they say research says, but I actually really like to test it on myself. So some 3 years ago or so, I was actually just doing an experiment. I had a lot of heavy, unhealthy habits in the past, and this is where mindfulness helped me to get rid of them and everything. And in a way, I even decided to keep smoking as one unhealthy habit that is going to let me know that I am human after all, and that I have flaws. So I was stubbornly holding on to it, and couldn't stop smoking. But then with mindful self-compassion, I thought, like, okay, I'm going to give it a try now, an experiment. And the way I worked with that, I said, I will give myself compassion every time I have a craving for a cigarette. I never even had a desire to smoke again. It was such a seamless release of the habit. It was, I am just fascinated how it all worked. So this idea of having healthy life without smoking, I can really vouch for that. Another misconception is that sometimes we can think that, you know, practicing self-compassion will mean that we are just making excuses. But however, actually, it really shows that people are taking greater responsibility as a result of practicing self-compassion, and that we will be likely we will apologize with more ease as well. In general, there is less of this rigid perspective of how the world should be, and we include ourselves in that as well. And as Chris Germer says, is actually the research about self-compassion is really very boring. It just ticks all the boxes. No matter where they put it and where they apply, they see enormous shift in behaviors, and also changes in the brain centers. So when it comes to a comparison of mindfulness and self-compassion, and if you're ever wondered what would be different between the two practices, so mindfulness will bring these curiosities, really has a strong element of curiosity. What am I experiencing right now? And self-compassion is bringing the layer, let's say it goes a little bit deeper, and is asking, what do I need right now? Are my needs met? And how can I bring awareness into addressing these needs. Then with mindfulness, we practice equanimity. We feel suffering with spacious awareness. We open up to the experience of the present moment with this sense of non-attachment, right? And with self-compassion, we bring kindness. We basically invite ourselves to experience the present moment with kindness. That is really the key element of the practice. So with mindfulness, we regulate the emotions through attention. So just staying present, just having this present moment awareness is actually helps to soothe the amygdala. We bypass amygdala, and that itself is bringing the regulation of emotions. With self-compassion, we regulate emotion by this sense of being with, and this is where that warmth and connection, affiliating with warmth with ourselves, with others. So mindfulness has calming effect, and self-compassion has warming effect. And with mindfulness, we stay with each present moment. It kind of like dismantles it. It's like we are staying with awareness. And self-compassion really brings this melting experience. And we can't create it with the mind. We can just open to experience it. And it somehow, this warmth and soothing finds us in the practice. So we kind of like show up with that warmth and kindness, with the intention, and then our heart begins to open up more and more. Or actually our attention and our awareness becomes more and more susceptible to it. All right, so I think that this is a lot of talking again. And I would like to go into the practice, but before that, any questions about what has been shared so far? Anything that you would want to challenge, or it's bringing confusion?
Hi, Daida.
Yes, Jeff. Mm-hmm.
May I add a few words to respond to the question or concerns from Dawn in terms of
Sure.
the difference between self-compassion and self-pity? So
yes,
this is a very good question. And I think self-pity is a kind of, both of them are kind of self-assessment. But self-pity is, I think it's a kind of assessment with a lot of emotion or bad feelings there. The strong emotions there. So it would be led you to a lot of rumination. It's not a very objective self-assessment. But self-compassion is a kind of self-assessment with mindfulness, with open awareness. Just accept what we are just seeing and do not have furthermore rumination there. I guess that is the one big difference that could let self-compassion make ourselves face those hard situations there, but still be aware that that's only this moment, but it will not happen all the time. Yeah, so I hope this could help Dawn and other people to have a basic understanding and the strong relationship between mindfulness and self-compassion.
Absolutely. Thank you for sharing that. And yes, this distinguishing this, what, like, how do we shift from self-pity to compassion, what it really means. It is really an adventure. Perhaps we can do a practice as well, so that just to see how that lands, and then we can come back. So I will switch the PPT, so it's just to get a little bit more into the space of connecting with each other without the words on the screen.